Hello and welcome once again to the Cup Experience Show, covering all the details of the 36th America's Cup. This is show number 12, day number 2 of the 36th America's Cup match presented by Prada. Hi, I'm Tucker Thompson, broadcasting here in the United States. I'm joined once again by Jack Griffin, live in Switzerland from cupexperience.com. He's at the Gstaad Yacht Club. Jack, it's great to have you back, as always. And here's the thing. Questions have been asked for the past 3.5 years about the America's Cup, how the teams would do, and now we are starting to get answers. One thing we know after the first day of racing is that this is going to be quite a competitive, if not long, event.
Boy, it was competitive on the first day, and I'm betting it's going to continue the same way out through the end of the whole series.
And this is new for you. You're at the Gstaad Yacht Club. What's going on there tonight?
I'm doing a briefing here for the members, and I have to tell you, everybody here wants the America's Cup to come back to Europe. So a very partial crowd that I'm dealing with this evening.
All right. Well, enjoy that. And we're gonna begin with the sponsor 60 seconds to thank those that make the Cup experience possible. Here we go. Beginning with Mount Gay Rum, the official sailor's rum. Find Mount Gay at drizzly.com or order your own cocktail set from the cocktail courier link below and send us your AC watch party photos with Mount Gay Rum. We want to put photos of you guys in our shows. Thank you to C-Deck Adhesive Foam Decking, which will literally transform the deck of your boat. It did for mine, and it did, of course, for American Magic, among many others as well. Thanks to AkzoNobel and All Grip Fast Finishes. The sport's fastest yachts are finished with the All Grip Next Generation Top Coat HDT. Thank you to Raba and Birking Silver and their American Magic collection, which is now a collector's edition. There are American Magic-themed cocktail tumblers, bottle coasters, and serving trays, and much more. Or you can customize them with whatever you want to put on the silver. You can ask Jack for more info or order them at americanmagic.cupexperience.com. And then finally, thanks to PELLINI Coffee, the official coffee supplier of New York Yacht Club American Magic, with its PELLINI Top 100% Arabica Espresso. PELLINI Coffee, keeping sailors energized. You can find it online at amazon.com. So thanks to all those who make the Cup experience possible, and now we get into the action. Going into this 36th America's Cup, everyone wondered if the predicted speed advantage of the Defender Emirates Team New Zealand would make the difference, or would the match racing skill and solid two-helms maneuvering favor the challenger, Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli? Would the development time benefit the Kiwis, or the extra experience gained by racing in the Prada Cup, would that give the Italians the edge? Well, here's a look at day number 1 of the America's Cup.
The opening day of the 36th America's Cup has been eagerly awaited. As the teams headed out, thousands of spectators were already afloat, ready and waiting for a new chapter in Cup history to start. From the dock to the racecourse, the pressure could be felt, pressure that can trip up even the coolest of crews. At the start, Emirates Team New Zealand gained a slim advantage. Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli needed to defend. Jimmy Spithill went for a luff, but it failed to deliver.
Protest.
The umpires declared all clear. The Italian gamble had failed. Advantage, the Kiwis. By gate 1, the margin was 14 seconds. Gate 2, 23. The Italians were holding on, but they couldn't do more. And after 3 laps, the Kiwis had taken the first win of the 36th America's Cup.
Yeah, really happy with the pre-start and the way that the whole team's got the boat in good shape.
The performance of the boat seems to be pretty close, and so it's exciting times ahead.
In race 2, the tables were turned. Luna Rossa now had the upper hand, forcing the Kiwis to tack. Spithill and Bruni defended their position, matching the Kiwis tack for tack. Squeezing high, sailing slow, the Italians made it difficult to pass. At gate 1, 13 seconds ahead. A tactical mistake after gate 4 cost them time. The Kiwis closed the gap and were gaining. Luna Rossa held their nerve to finish just 7 seconds ahead. But a win is a win, whatever the margin.
Yeah, I thought the boys sailed a great race then. We had obviously quite a lot of manoeuvres, quite a lot of tacks. And yeah, just kept the boat going well. So it was a good sign of strength, I thought, to bounce back after that first one. Yeah, we definitely looked a little bit rusty there in that one, but
it was good to get back into them on that last speed and, really show that, we are good downwind. Yeah, you could say it's rust or just a mistake. I'm pretty happy that we've got a tool here that we can win this thing with.
After months of speculation, day one had delivered one win apiece and at least one answer. The America's Cup could be close, very close.
No doubt, Jack, it is close with a score of 1-1. So the question is, what is going on? Everyone thought that the Kiwis would just clean sweep the Italians, and the Italians were competitive in race number 1 and then turned around and beat the Kiwis in race 2.
Yeah, that's the trick. It's exactly what Max Serena said to us in the interview we did with him. If they can get a good start, the racetrack is narrow enough, and with good match racing maneuvers, just keep on the other boat. Don't let them get a split at the gates. And a boat that's a little bit slower can beat a boat that's a little bit faster. And what we found out is that that's what we've got. We do not have a boat that is a lot faster. We've got a boat that's a little bit faster. And that's not enough to get past a boat that's ahead of you.
Unless, of course, you are the one that is ahead. So this is quickly evolving into a tale of two assets. Does Emirates Team New Zealand have enough of a speed advantage to win the America's Cup, or is the match racing skill of Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli going to put them out in front and keep them in front? Now, Peter Burling and the Kiwis don't have the same match racing experience or race experience that the Italians do, so they have to rely on using the simulator. So we're going to move into the next section and ask Jack. Jack, this is my favorite section. It's presented by Seahorse Magazine, and the question is, how does the simulator help these teams? Let's have a look.
Today, let's talk about simulators, and let's have Nathan Outeridge start off by giving us a little bit of an overview of how they're used, what they're used for, and what they can do.
With the simulators, there's sort of three things you can use it for. One is design and designing these C75s. Team New Zealand and Luna Rossa would have worked in the simulator before they confirm the rule to prove that the boats work, in simulation. So designers are using these simulators at the moment to design the overall boat, and they can refine, the foils and run different sorts of foils through the simulator to test, how the boats might perform. The crew can also use simulators for maneuver training and practice. I know at Artemis Technologies, we built a simulator, the team built a simulator that really sort of gets you hands-on and using the boat and practicing your maneuvers. And then the third one would be, you can use the simulator to race against each other. So, for example, I'm sure Luna Rossa with their dual helms have a simulator where Jimmy can race against Bruni and they can do race training in the simulator. So the whole world these days is going into a virtual world, and motorsport's been there for a long time, and so it's nice now that sailing is heading that way also.
Okay, so when you're using one of these simulators, what's it like? How realistic is it?
Well, there's different types of simulators. The best kind of simulator is the cockpit that you sit in. So, say on the AC75s, they would have the exact steering wheel that they use on the race boat with the same seat and button layout. And if you look at the SAR GP boats with what we've got there with the Artemis simulator, it is effectively a hull for three people to sit in. You've got every single button and switch in the same position that you have on the race boat. So you're learning your muscle memory, you're learning where all the buttons and switches are, and the hexapod that you sit on is hydraulically controlled, and it moves up and down, side to side. It's vibrating. When you do a touchdown on the graphics, the whole boat shakes. So it's trying to make it as realistic as possible to what you feel on the water. And it's really hard because it's a 3D world with the sailing, because you've got the water and the wind and boats slipping sideways with leeway and stuff like that. So it's quite a tough thing to simulate, whereas a car, it's a bit more two-dimensional. You've got the car on the road, and yes, you get the G-forces when you turn. So sailing simulators, I think, are taking longer to develop, but as technology keeps advancing and more teams are realizing that it's a really cost-effective way to do equipment validation and also maneuver training, it's becoming more and more popular. And for sailors, it gets them a chance to sort of design the layout of their cockpit, make sure they're happy with all the button switches, and then when they get on the water, they're just so much further ahead than what they were before they went, sailing.
Well, Nathan has given us a good description of the simulator and what you can do with it, but what does one of these things look like? Of course, the teams won't let us see theirs, but there is one we can take a look at, and that's the one that was developed for SailGP by Artemis Technologies. Let's have a look.
2, 1, here we go, turning.
I don't think there's anything else that exists like this in the world for sailing.
Take a little differential off.
It's like a huge sailing game.
Oh, it's pretty cool. Like, you see all the water splashing at you and you like instinctively put your head down, like trying to avoid it.
Capsized within 10 seconds.
See like a computer game, and we also generate accelerations which are fed to this motion base that you see behind me. They can move in 1.5 meters in every direction. And we use 3 projectors and they combine to make a 240-degree wraparound screen that's 5 meters tall. We have the cockpit on top, so we have 3 positions in the cockpit. We have a surround sound system. Fully focused on the boat. The weather's always good, and you only need 3 or 4 people to run the simulator. You don't need your whole shore crew.
For us, with these sessions on the simulator, it's about learning the boat, learning the HMI, so the control systems. That's quite new to some of us, certainly for myself. And then the performance of the boat. How do we get the maximum speed? And then simulating being on the race course. So that's really a great opportunity to learn that in a dry hangar and then get out on the water for real and put it into practice.
We've got all the racing software. You've got all your pre-start software, and you pick your wind speed, get the boat going, and you can either do it on your own, or you can race yourself from previous races, or even other teams.
That's true, boys.
From a coaching perspective, you've got all the data you could dream of.
Okay, 2, 1, turn out here.
Time straightening, we can't probably be here as much as we would like, but 2 or 3 sessions here will pay huge dividends when it comes to getting on the water in Sydney, just in terms of understanding the boat, understanding the controls. So if we can get that worked out here, we'll be that much closer to getting to our optimum.
Listening to Ben Ainsley there, it sounds like Ineos Team UK may not have had anything quite as sophisticated as that SailGP simulator with all of the hydraulic struts for the motion. We don't know what they have at Luna Rossa or at Emirates Team New Zealand, but we can talk to Pete Burling and to Keko Bruni and hear what they have to say about using a simulator. I think you'll find it interesting. Burling is a little bit more interested in getting out on the water. Bruni is very enthusiastic about the simulator. Let's talk with each of them. Peter, tell us about your simulator and how you use it.
We've got a lot of tools. Probably the biggest onshore one's our simulator, which we have used a lot and have used a lot in the past. Which is really good at practicing scenarios and coming up with ideas. Obviously, Luna Rossa's got a pretty similar tool there. But then, on the water, it's been a lot about getting really good at the boat handling and really comfortable as to what the boat can do.
During the Prada Cup, you haven't been able to race, but you've been out practicing against your chase boat. How realistic is that? How accurate is it?
Yeah, it can be as accurate as you want. Obviously, it looks slightly different because it doesn't have a sail up, but you can definitely replicate the speeds and the angles very well, and replicate what you can do on the boat very well.
What kind of systems and software do you have on the chase boat so that when you're practicing racing against it, it's behaving like an AC-75 of a competitor?
Yeah, well, I think everyone's set it up in different ways, but there's obviously software and bits and pieces on everything now, whether it's the marks or the chase boats, the race boat, and the amount of data that you can use very easily is just going up and up, which I think is why you see all these teams going so well. It's just because it's getting so much easier to actually analyze everything and go over them in depth. But it's obviously at the end of the day, humans still probably have to make the decisions as to where to place the yacht and how to make life awkward for another boat or not, because that's really the only thing you don't have good data on is actually where the opposition are.
Well, let's check in with Luna Rossa and talk to Francesco Bruni. Keko, when you are using your simulator, how accurately can you tell what your competitor's doing? Can you actually race against a competitor in your simulator?
No, we cannot input what their boat numbers, but what we can do is keep practicing like we've been doing a lot of pre-starts, me against Jimmy or me and Jimmy against Philippe Presti, and keep practicing a lot so that when the situation comes, we are not reacting late. That's all we can do.
I always like to find out about the realism, the accuracy of the simulators. How has yours developed over time? How accurate is it?
Oh, it's very accurate. And it's been progressing with us. The simulator of 3 years ago was nowhere near what we have today, and so we improved. The simulator is improved, and the two things are going together. We at the moment are using the simulator mainly for plays and tactics and pre-start, but it's been a great tool during the whole campaign, also for design purpose.
I'm sure you've seen the simulator that Artemis Technologies built for SailGP with the moving platform. Do you have that as well? Do you have a platform for your simulator?
We have a moving platform. You can decide to use or to have a moving platform or not. What I think nobody has is water coming on top of your face and wind noise.
There we go. A quick tour of simulators and how they're being used. I'm fascinated by that topic. Thanks for the question. Keep the questions coming.
That was really cool. As always, Jack, one question I have for you, and I get this question a lot when I do my America's Cup shows all over the country at yacht clubs, is what trickle-down things are we going to see in mainstream sailing? So my question to you is, do you think this simulator technology will be one of the trickle-downs we'll see from this 36 America's Cup?
I think it's a long time before the average sailor is going to get to use a full motion hydraulic platform. But I think simulation on basically video games, we've had that in the America's Cup at least since the 2007 edition with match racing, try out the tactics, performance of boats. You can get there. There's a certain amount of that. I mean, there's already an e-sailing world championship from World Sailing. So that's a form of simulation that you can use it to learn the rules. You can learn basic tactics. And then as computing power increases, budgets increase, we'll have more and more realism.
Well, realism is what it's going to take, and we know that Peter Burling, who hasn't been, a real-world pre-start in match racing, has been relying heavily on the simulator as well as their chase boat. So we'll see how that pays off. But so far, it worked in one race, but not in the other race. Now, I've noticed a pattern in the Italians' pre-start that I think is very predictable. If you know it's coming, you can counter it. So pay attention, Peter Burling. Here's a look at how to beat Spithill and Bruni in match racing pre-starts. Spithill, and respectfully by Spithill, I also mean Bruni, seems to have the same approach to every single start. That's leading back in early, which in these AC-75s seems to be the most powerful. So they do it in almost every single start. Let's take a look at how. We begin with them entering on port at 2 minutes, 10 seconds, which is the strongest entry because it automatically puts them in the leading position. So here they dip down below the line. Now, if they're entering from starboard, they simply jibe or tack first to lead back to the line. So they'll bear off into the starting box until they're directly to leeward of the right-hand end of the starting mark. Then they'll head up and go on the wind. Here it comes. Now, at this point, regardless of what their opponent is doing, they're going to head towards the right-hand boundary, going high with speed. And when they get to the boundary, they're going to bear off along it, going downwind, paralleling it until roughly a minute 10 to a minute 5, and that's when they'll jibe around on starboard. So here we are, a minute 25 to go. 10 seconds to the jibe, and here comes their typical bear away. Ainsley somewhere off to the left in this start. Coming up on 110, they'll set up for the jibe. Bang. There it is. Now, at somewhere between 50 and 45 seconds, they're going to luff up roughly 4 lengths above the lay line for the starboard end of the line and slow down and wait for the opponent. There's an option at a port starboard, which doesn't result in a penalty. Now, Ainsley sees there early. He's going to set up behind. And that's what their opponents typically do. Here it comes, 50 seconds, right on time, and he's above starboard tack ley line, slowing down. This is where time on distance is key. They always lead back early with between 15 to 20 seconds to kill to the line. That's usually too early for their opponent, who ends up behind and to windward, working on their own time and distance. Jimmy simply lines his mast up with your bow and reels you in, matching you. If you accelerate, so does he. If you slow down, he does too, until you're either hooked or late. But in this case, Ben is late, and he goes down for a failed hook that leaves him a little bit behind, with the Italians ending up tight to leeward. Ben working on trying to gain a little bit of windward gauge there. That's not going to work as the clock ticks down. Now, to be fair, Ben actually gets a little bit of a start out of this by gaining speed. He'll end up tight to windward. The bad news is the Italians eventually burn him off, and they win the first cross and the race in this case. And here, Jimmy gives us another look at the counter move to his lead-in pre-start approach, which is to immediately initiate the push from behind and then go for the hook, so the opponent burns up the extra 15 or 20 seconds and gets to the line too early, while Jimmy fishtails to windward and takes weather gauge. One thing that Jimmy tries to do when he pushes is get the bows going in opposite directions. So Dean goes down, Jimmy's going to take a big dig up. So there's the bows going in opposite directions. And boom, he's got weather gauge. He'll just simply wind up to full speed, and Dean has run out of time. He's going to have to go down the line towards the pin. This gives the right to the Italians in a right-hand must-win situation. The Italians win the start, and unfortunately for Dean Barker, the race. Now, in race number 2 of the America's Cup, we saw Peter Burling do the right thing, just as we saw in that example, to counter the lead-in start, and that is to push. The problem is he left it too late, and in the end, it doesn't work. Let's take a look. All right, we'll speed up the entry a bit, but it's basically the same spit hill port approach from the left-hand side of the starting line. Now, when they get directly downwind, directly to leeward of the right-hand end of the line, look for them to head up and then start close reaching, in this case, towards the boundary. There we go. Now, Burling does the right thing by jibing immediately behind and following. But here, Jimmy sets up to jibe at 110. There it is. And begin the lead-in. Peter does the right thing. He matches the Italians, tacking when they jibe. But here's the first mistake. Peter stays high. He waits too long before coming down to engage the Italians and initiate the push. Now, at 55 seconds, he starts to head for the line, but this is when he should be heading towards Jimmy. And he's not. He's wasting 10 or 15 seconds before he'll finally go down for the push, which is time he could have used getting Jimmy heading down the line and fishtailing and gaining gauge to the right, but he doesn't. Now, at 40 seconds, he finally heads for the Italians. Goes for their transom. That's the right thing to do, but he has no time left for maneuvering or any mistakes that might come up or issues. Jimmy does the right thing, responding by putting his bow down, and that gives Pete the ability to head up and gain a little bit of gauge to windward. So he's going to get a little bit of a start out of this, but at 15 seconds here, he drops off the foils when he heads up from 36 knots down to 30. That's it, kiss of death. He drops behind with no extra time to recover and get back up to the line, or at least tack away and get to the line on time, and that gives the Italians the starts. There's the gun, Kiwis behind, Italians win the start and the race. Now, I'm surprised that people in the media, on TV, and even the teams don't seem to have picked up, or if they have, they're not using the counter moves aggressively enough against what I think is a very predictable Italian pre-start. Now, in my personal opinion, watching the second race of the Cup, I think Burling is not confident enough in his match racing skills. He's relying on his speed. He's basically approaching the line like a fleet racer, time on distance, which works fine, and particularly in the reaching starts that we saw in Bermuda, that works a little bit better. But here, when you've got one of the best match racing pre-start helmsmen in the world, both Spithill and Bruni, and you know they're going to use aggressive moves in match racing, you've got to be able to go toe-to-toe if you're going to beat them in the America's Cup. Now, I think Peter Burling not only lacks the experience, but the practice and therefore the muscle memory to pull off those split-second moves that need to happen. And I think he knows it, so he's just going to say, look, I'm going to get off the line clean. However, when he came off the foils and didn't give himself enough time to get up to the line, that killed a valuable 5 seconds. And if you watch the television show again, you can see that they go through the wake of the Italians. Every time one of these boats on the foils goes through the wake of the other boat, they trip a little bit. And so that it's just one of those things that I don't think they practiced enough, and it shows there in race number 2. Now, to be fair, Peter Burling's the type of sailor that can probably bounce back. There are 2 types of match racing styles. There's positional match racing, and there's expansive. Now, the Kiwis are sailing expansively, like a fleet race, playing the wind shifts, using their speed, letting their opponent go. Then if you're very confident in your speed and, more importantly, your positioning and maneuvering in the match race, you clamp down on your competition. You do positional match racing, something we see Ian Williams, 6-time world champion, do comfortably quite a lot in his match racing style. But that's not what the Kiwis have elected to do at this point. And I'm not sure it's working for them. So here's the lesson. You cannot ignore match racing in the pre-start, or you'll risk starting behind, like we saw in race 2. And you cannot ignore match racing on the race course, or you risk giving an open door for your opponent to pass you. And that's the lesson. In this America's Cup, the matches might be won by the better match racer. We had a chance to check in with AC television commentator Ken Reed, also president of North Sales, to give us his take on the racing, and particularly match racing tactics in the pre-start.
Second start, I thought he did textbook what you're taught to do. If the boat ahead of you comes back early like that, you gap off to windward. I mean, you've done enough match racing, you gap off. But once you gap off to windward and you roll into attack like that, you have to start your push process right away. You have to hammer down. You're just pushing that boat to be early at the pin. That's everything. And they just hung out there for a while. And by hanging out, the more you hang out, the more you go slow in that position and wait, the more vulnerable you become. So he said in the press conference, I wouldn't do much different. We just didn't pull the trigger fast enough. I think they look back and they analyze that and they say, we did a lot wrong in that second start. We got to do better. I think if they want to engage in classic match racing, they can. But I think they're shying away from that because they think their boat is fast, but maybe not as maneuverable as the Italian boat. It is absolutely fair to say, if it's experience in match racing and pre-starts, which we know makes a difference now because it's upwind starts versus reaching starts. These are classic match racing starts in boats that go 40 knots. The other guys have an advantage. There's no way anybody can say that the Italians don't have a match racing starting advantage. And there's no question that Burling doesn't have the match racing. He has the starting ability, but he does not have that match racing prowess that the other 2 guys have. I think they've both been at or near the top in match racing world championships before. I think you still have to give the edge, believe it or not to Peter Burling, but to the Italians, to that dual helm Italian program, just simply on match racing ability alone. And in the last 14 races, there's been 1 pass. So you better get off the starting line. With those types of statistics, you better get off the starting line, because if you don't, you may not have a chance. Now, Burling has made a career out of making the rest of the world look foolish. When they say somebody else has an advantage, he comes out and kicks their ass. And so you never bet against that guy. But the reality is, Spithill and Bruni, compared to Burling, from a match racing standpoint, they definitely have the experience.
I love it. Ken Reed, I mean, is there anyone better? He's doing such a great job on TV, and you heard it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. If you have match racing experience and can start ahead, the passing lanes are going to shut down, and I think the Kiwis know that. You also heard him say, hey, to be fair, Peter Burling knows how to react and evolve, and he's probably going to evolve quickly. So thank you, Ken. We'll see how the racing continues. We checked in with viewers online. We want to thank everybody for joining us again and giving us your comments. We tend to see, Kiwi supporters, Italian supporters, even some American Magic supporters still wishing they were in the regatta. I understand and do as well. Now, the schedule, as we mentioned in show number 1, there's the America's Cup racing will continue tonight, and then every single night until we get a winner. First to win 7 points, 7 wins. So we'll see who that'll be and how long it's going to take to conclude this competition. Jack, weather conditions for tonight's racing. What do we got?
Looks like it could favor Luna Rossa. It could be pretty light, 6 to 13 knots out of the southeast.
And how about the race course? Which one do you think they'll use?
Yeah, I think with those conditions, we haven't had the announcement yet from Ian Murray, but with those conditions, it'll probably be Racecourse E down there by Wahiki Island. Let's see what happens. Looking forward to it.
Known as the back paddock because it's so far away from Auckland City, all the way out to the right there, course E, and we'll see what happens. Now, as you all know by now, I'm sure NBC Sportsnet has the television broadcast delayed tonight. By the way, the racing starts every night actually at 10 p.m. U.S. You can also download NBC Sports Gold. It's discounted now, and that's how we watch it. They do a great job. Our favorite section, once again, beautiful work. Ask Jack. You can go on and ask Jack questions. We'll answer them in the show. Only a few more shows left, Jack, to conclude the America's Cup as our Cup experience concludes as well. So I want to ask you, what are your predictions for tonight, Jack?
As always, expect the unexpected. That being said, I think with the light wind and the match racing advantage that Luna Rossa has, I'm going to say we're going to see 2 Luna Rossa wins today.
Ooh,
how about
I
that?
like it. Living on the edge. Ken Reed will probably agree with you. Well, let's end our show with our traditional toast. I've got my Mount Gay and Coke this time tonight, and I know you've got a Pellini coffee there at the Gstaad Yacht Club. Cheers.
That's right,
to day
but I'm
number 2,
using my
Jack.
silver American Magic tumbler for my coffee, being here at the Gstaad Yacht Club.
Beautiful. Cheers.
Cheers.
Here we go. Always my favorite part of the show. Well, that wraps up another Cup experience. That's it for us. We want to thank you guys for joining us and the sponsors as well. In just a few hours, we begin day number 2 of the 36th America's Cup match presented by Prada. We want to also remind you to like and follow us. We're going to be doing a Cup experience show every night. There's racing on the America's Cup, broadcasting by 8 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook. You can also send us your comments on Facebook or send us an email at tuckertlive@gmail.com. Also, don't forget, visit Jack's website, cupexperience.com, where you can sign up for his newsletter and also send the Ask Jack questions. We want to hear from you as well. Send us your comments and your photos drinking Pellini coffee or Mount Gay rum, and we'll put your comments or your viewer photos in the show. So that wraps up another Cup experience. We hope you've enjoyed watching it. We certainly hope you continue watching the unpredictable and excitingly competitive 36th America's Cup, day number 2. Once again, for Jack Griffin at the Gstaad Yacht Club in Switzerland and our producer-director Mason Sheen, I'm Tucker Thompson. Thanks again for watching the Cup experience.